Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. In this video, it's all about February. My February in review. My top 3 books, my least favourite 3 books, and 2 books I want to mention that just didn't make the top 3. First off, how many books did I read for the month and what were the genres? I read 19 books for the month, thriller, 4 books, general fiction or contemporary, 7 books, fantasy, 1 book, cozy mystery, 5 books, mystery, 1 book, horror, 1 book. So a little bit of a split in genres there. For the first time, I think general fiction or contemporary fiction has been the top of the list for the month. And I separate mystery and cozy mysteries because cozy mysteries are so different from general mysteries. That's why I split them apart. What were my favourite 3 books for February? The first is Apartment 303, written by Kelli Hawkins. I really enjoyed this story. Kelli Hawkins is an Australian author. This book is very gripping, very entertaining, and very thrilling. It's a slow burn psychological book. And it's about a woman who's kind of housebound. And she's housebound for certain reasons you'll learn if you read this book. She doesn't witness a crime, but she suspects that she sees the culprit from her home, from her apartment. And the face she sees, she thinks it's somebody from her past, linked to trauma in her past. So the main character suffers from PTSD, OCD, and high anxiety, and it's linked to some huge trauma in her past when she was a teenager. And she thinks she sees a face linked to that. And then things start to happen in her own apartment, and new people start appearing in her life around the same time as well. And all this unsettles her. And she starts to wonder if she can trust the new people, if she can even trust what's going on in a new apartment. Can she trust those things going on in her apartment? Are they really happening? So it's a very well written book, I think. Those slow burn elements are superb. And the build up towards the end, the conclusion, is so well done. Because by the end, you don't know who to trust. As a reader, you're not sure either. And I think that's very powerful in a book like this. The second is A Good House for Children, written by Kate Collins. It's a gothic horror book, and I like this book a lot. The writing style, the characters, the setting, is just all so well done. It's a debut book by the author. I like the way 2 different storylines in different time frames are in this story in the same house. And I like the way those timelines sometimes bleed into each other. The characters in both timelines, so the main character in both timelines, sometimes sees little snippets of something in the house, little flashes of imagery that they think are ghosts or something going on in the house. And sometimes you wonder if it's the past events kind of bleeding into the other storyline, or the present events, future events bleeding into the past storyline. Then you get little images of other storylines as well, other time frames. And it's just so well written, this story. And one of the big things about this story is that it uses a house as a character. The house directly impacts what the characters, the human characters in the book feel, what they do and say sometimes as well. And does it in very clever ways. And it's a personality into itself. And you'll find that when you read this book. You'll find this house that's very welcoming at the start, then gets aggressive as the story goes on. Has a character of its own and was used so well in this story. Sunbathing by Isobel Beech. It's an Australian book and a debut book as well. I enjoyed this a lot. It's a book that's about coming to terms with grief and understanding and not forgiveness. So a lot of the books that involve grief and are heavily centered around grief are also heavily centered around forgiveness. But this book doesn't so much go into forgiveness territory. There's a little bit of survivor guilt in the book, but not so much forgiveness. But what this does, it also uses place as a character. So it's another book where the author uses different settings as a driver to change the way characters feel, what they say, what they think. All things about characters in the book are changed by the setting, by the environment. And it's very powerful when an author does that, I think. And in this book, it's used quite well. And the settings are so different. But when the setting's in Italy, in the countryside in Italy, everything's so colourful and vibrant and so comfortable. You feel like you're there, you feel like you're experiencing that, and you feel comforted reading it. And I think this book, this author, has just written a very powerful book. Now for my worst 3 books of the month. The first is Sugar, written by Carly Nugent. There are 2 main reasons why I didn't like this book. The first is it just felt like a bit cliche. And the reason it feels cliche is it uses anger and angst and all these different themes and feelings that are so heavily overused in contemporary young adult books. It uses it to the extreme in this book. It's the main thing about this book, anger and angst, and especially teen angst. That's the big reason why I didn't like this book. And probably 2 reasons tied into one. Because it got cliche, used time and time again, and just that angry teenage character. It just was overdone, and it just felt a bit self-indulgent really from the author, and I didn't really enjoy the book because of that. I enjoyed some of the Australian settings in the story. They were described quite well and used quite well, and I liked that setting, and it just felt very real, like you were seeing it. So I enjoyed that part of the story, but not much else in the story. The characters, or most of the characters, just felt a bit off, a bit overdone, a bit over the top, and just bordering on cliche territory for most of them, but the main character especially just felt too cliche and too overdone. Unnecessary Drama by Nina Kenwood. I didn't enjoy this book really at all, and it's another contemporary young adult book. It does use a bit of angst in the story, but the reason I didn't enjoy this is just the characters didn't feel real, and there just seemed to be many things in the story that just didn't make sense. So we have a character, the main character, who thinks about somebody else she's sharing a house with as being enemies, but they're not. It's all one-sided, and it all stays in her head, all lives in her head. And just certain events that happen with this main character just felt too over the top, way over the top. It's a book where it feels like to me the author was grabbing different ideas and concepts from other mediums, be it books or TVs or movies, and putting it into this book. And it just felt a bit obvious because of that. And it was too many, I guess, big events, big moments for the main character thrown into the book, trying to make it seem almost comical in a way as well, like some sort of rom-com going on. But I felt a bit lost because of that. I just felt like too many components in the one story. So I think another book that's overdone, another book that ends up feeling a little bit cliche as well, and not cliche in a good way, because sometimes cliche can be good. I'm not saying that cliche is always bad, but when cliche feels like it's overdone, over the top, and it feels like the author's trying too hard really, there's no subtlety in the way it's told, then it becomes bad. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, written by V.E. Schwab. And the reason I read this book is because I saw another booktuber rave on about this book and gave it 5 stars. And I thought, I read another book by this author, I'll try this one. It has to be good. It's not. I was so disappointed. It's a book where basically nothing happens. It's a book where the first 5% is wonderful. The last 5% is good, bordering on great. And then the middle 90% is just awful. It's just terrible. It didn't make a big impact on me. It felt like the plot went nowhere. When I was reading this book, and, I wish I was a person who could just finish a book halfway through. But I don't like to do that, because I just think there has to be something in every book. There's got to be something in every book that I'll like. And I sometimes struggle to find that in books. But in this book I found it at the start and the end, and through the whole middle section of the book, which is the biggest section of the book. It just felt a bit of a mess, really. So it's basically about this woman who makes a deal with a dark god. We find out he's Lucifer. She sells her soul, basically. So she's still got her soul, but the deal is she can give it up at any time. And she wants to just have no attachments. So when she makes this deal, this bargain, she can't be remembered by anybody. And she lives a long life. So she's about 300 and something years old in this story, and she's still alive and still living a long life, but nobody can remember her. But there are key things in this book that don't make sense. One of them being she's meant to be a character where if she met somebody, say if she met you in public and you met her face to face, you'd remember her the whole time. You got your eyes on her. And once you turn away, or once she walks into another room, once you lose sight of her, you're meant to forget her, forget all about her. So if you walk back into your eye line again, it'd be like meeting a new person. But during this story, she describes days where she spends the whole day with somebody, and it's one of the best days in her life. That doesn't make sense. Were they together the whole time? Was she in this person's eye line the whole time? Don't they go to the bathroom by themselves during the day? Aren't they just separate for, a minute or two during the day? Didn't make sense in the story. So that was a big standout for me in this story, and it's an element that's meant to be the whole cornerstone of the story, but it doesn't make sense and didn't gel. So that's disappointing, and that should have been picked up in the editing process. Now for two books that are worth a mention. It didn't make the top 3, but are still good books and I still recommend them. The first is The Slumber Party, written by Shannon Hollinger. I really enjoyed this book. It's a great thriller. It also has a great mystery in the story. But the pacing, the writing, the way it's structured, the characters, everything about this book is just very well done. It feels like the author took a long time to plan this book, plan it out and write it and get that structure right, make it very tight, fast-paced, no filler. There's nothing in this book that feels like waste. Everything's there for a reason, and it's a book that keeps you guessing. And it's also a book where the author drags you down rabbit trails. You have no choice. You have to go down them. You can't veer off in your own mind. You're forced to go where the author wants you to go. And it forces you to make assumptions about certain characters in the book, and then those assumptions get challenged. As certain twists and turns and surprises happen in the book, you're left kind of reeling, and you have to quickly veer. You have to be very agile when you read this book, and you have to quickly change your impression of characters and wonder about them anew. And I like that in this story. I think the author did a great job in this book. Death by Beech Reid by Eva Gates. Now this is a cozy mystery in one of my favourite series in the cozy mystery genre. It's the 9th book in this series, and this series is going strong still. And I enjoyed this book a lot because it brings different elements into the setting of this book, the town it's set in. We get to meet different characters in the local area, and they're locals, and they're fleshed out more. And I like that in the series. I like the fact that the author's still giving us local characters and describing them in more detail, bringing them to life more in different books. Also, the mystery in this book is very good because there's different elements. There's different forks to this mystery. It's not just one main mystery. There's little side shoots as well that have to be solved. And I enjoyed that because the side shoot mystery in this book, or one of them anyway, is almost like a treasure hunt. They're trying to decipher what a treasure could be. And you find out at the end of the story. But I like the journey to get there. I like that adventure. I like books that have some sort of treasure hunt feel to them. So this book is a very enjoyable book in this series, and it's still a long-running series, 9 books so far. A 10th book is about to be released sometime this year. I'm looking forward to reading that as well. So there you have my month of February. Books I thought were amazing, books I thought were not amazing, and books that I thought were really good but just didn't make that top 3 list. I hope some of the books in this video pique your interest. I have videos of all books on my channel, some there now and some coming up in the future. We'll learn about the books in more detail and also what I thought about them rating wise. On my channel I review books of many genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. I'm sure you'll find something you like.